Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining this follow-up webinar today. We are really happy that to welcome colleagues from different disciplines, institutions, and countries, and we sincerely appreciate your continued engagement and commitment throughout this process. This webinar is part of our ongoing effort to advance the Antarctica InSync initiative and to ensure a transparent, inclusive, and community-driven process. Today's session builds directly on the work we have been developing together over the past year. This webinar builds on the discussions held during the previous session and provides an opportunity to reflect on the progress made since then. Today, we aim to present updates on the white papers, highlight key developments, and offer a space for further exchange that will help strengthen their content and relevance. Your contributions and feedbacks are essential to this process. The follow-up webinar allows us to bring together perspectives from the wider scientific community and to ensure that the white papers benefit from broad, interdisciplinary, and international input. First, each team will briefly present the core message of the different white papers, focusing on the key scientific challenge, main knowledge gaps, and proposed actions. These are plenary presentations and are intentionally concise to allow sufficient time for discussion. Second, following each presentation, we will move into the team-specific breakout discussion. These sessions are a critical part of the process. They are meant to be interactive and forward-looking, providing space to clarify ideas, identify priorities, and discuss how wider community can contribute. Third, and this is particularly important, we want to encourage all participants to actively provide written feedback directly to the SCAR white papers webpage. Verbal discussion is extremely valuable, but written comments ensure that your input is formally. Before we begin, I would like to inform you that the plenary presentations will be recorded. Unfortunately, the breakup discussions, not this time, but we will share all these videos and presentations in our different channels and platforms that we have. We hope today's presentations and discussions will be engaging and productive, and that they will help guide the next steps of the white papers process. Thank you to all of you again for your time and active participation. And with that, I would now like to hand over to Stephanie Ahn, who will provide a brief introduction overview before we continue with the program.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Diego, and welcome also from my side. And with that said, not only from my side, but also from Alexander Haumann, who will take over this presentation here at some point, as well as from the whole coordination office coordination office of Antarctica InSync. We are really glad that we are able now to run the third time this webinar with a huge support of ESA, in particular making that possible, and also, of course, in addition, as Diego already mentioned, also a big support of SCAR, who managed and supported us crucially in making all the white papers available, so that we are now at the stage where we are now, actually, and that we have now really the opportunity to have that great discussion here. However, given that we just realized that the at least like registered attendance is really, really high for this webinar, which makes us really, really happy. We want to take the opportunity to just really briefly guide you through the kind of like timeline we went over the past couple of years to get to the point where we are today with Antarctica InSync. And therefore, I want to start in 2023. However, we are, of course, like hopefully all aware of the point that, of course, all the international coordinated discussions around Antarctic research started already many, many years before that. However, 2023 was a good starting point for InSync in order to build on existing documents and papers, as, for example, the Southern Ocean Action Plan, and different other papers that summarize the big need of a coordinated effort in terms of Antarctic research, not only from the ocean perspective, but really also in coordination with the land observations in general, but also with the modeling and with the satellite remote sensing perspective. Having that said, in 2023, we had one of the, we could use one of the ATCM meetings to kind of kick off Antarctica InSync, and where several countries stood up to say that they would support this initiative. Based on that, we then managed to have Antarctica InSync also run under the big umbrella of the current still running UN Ocean Decade, which was a big step forward to make Antarctic InSync much more visible, also like as it is today. And then there was the first two symposium in Tasmania, which allowed us then also the first time to not only have this top-down process, but really the bottom-up one, and to talk within the science community, really open about what we want from the scientific community to be tackled within Antarctica InSync. And based on that, in the following year, in 2024, the next ATCM meeting took place, obviously, and there even more countries signed up. And it got then quite some momentum, both from the science, but also from the political and leadership perspective, given that we had then the Europolar Science Week, again, a big support with the ESA back then, where we started discussions on how ESA could support also InSync. We had the SCAR Symposium, where also much more of the science, but also again, like of the general development of the framework of Antarctica InSync was developed. At the same time, in 2024, in order to engage more countries and to make people aware of it and to make people contribute to it and to make people really connect to each other, both on international levels, but also on national levels, this was the time when we decided to establish the different national committees as well as the scientific themes. And with that, I want to just like remind you quickly on our 7 different themes that we have now. And I don't want to go through them in detail. However, I just want to mention here again that you might be well aware of the 6 themes that we so far pretty often presented already here. However, just like over the past month, actually, we are really happy to have now also theme 7 on the variability extremes and the tipping in the changing Antarctic climate as a 7th theme established, given that this team then also allows to kind of span across larger timescales and kind of even stronger to connect the different themes in between. In addition, as I was talking now already about the national committees itself, as well as these science themes, I want to take the opportunity to also introduce here briefly the general governance of the Antarctic InSync project as we set it up now. So we have, on the one hand, we have the International Steering Board, where all countries that are engaged within Antarctica InSync have their chair in from the respective country and the one of the leadership team there from the respective institutions. We have then the central coordination currently hosted at AVI, and we have the national committees that I was just mentioning. We have then, in addition, the 7 different themes, and just recently we now established, and this makes, at least this what we hope will make communication between the different themes much easier. That we established now the so-called Scientific Steering Board. The Scientific Steering Board I will just introduce in a minute, but it really just summarizes all the different themes, also in connection to SCAR and Antarctica InSync in general. In addition to these themes, we then started also the big workload, and this will be also a major part of today's discussion then in the breakout groups, is the whole topic around the different working groups that might establish either within the different themes, but also here we highly encourage, again, people to think about real cross-cutting working groups, really spanning across themes in order to connect people, in order to define bridge topics between different themes. So these working groups are really also meant to think outside your own box, so to say. So with that, just quickly jumping back how the scientific steering board looks like. So those are now the people we stood up from the international community, both identified in our last meeting in Frascati, but also on a really larger international scale, where we really jumped regularly into the different themes and asked for people who want to represent the theme on that level. And we are really, really glad that this huge number of people now have been happy to do so. We are aware that this is now like only just like really the highest level of this whole leadership board with respect to the science. We are aware that then for the different themes there are like still sub-theme leads in given the fact that some of the themes are really, really broad, and this is what we also highly support and welcome at that stage. And we also want to just like outline here again that these names are of course not set in stone forever. So if people want to drop out, if other people want to take the opportunity to stand up and to bring momentum into the different themes and to add their additional bits and pieces here and there, we are more than happy and welcome these additional inputs. So just like get in contact then with the theme, or the current theme leads, get in contact with the coordination office. In addition, the Science Steering Committee has not, steering board has not only the theme leads, but we're also really glad that we now get quite some momentum in the SCAR action group of Antarctica InSync, which is led by Petra Heil and Inga Beck, who are therefore also part of the science steering board, as well as Diego, in order to coordinate all of us and to keep all the different loose ends together. And I think with that, I just hand over now to Alex, and I hope that he could make it now in time to the call.
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks very much, Steffi. So I will briefly go over the process that led us to white papers that we will discuss today. So Steffi already mentioned the timeline leading up to 2024 and the establishment of the governance structure of Antarctica InSync. And here we show what we achieved in 25 and what was the goals in 25. So there was several events happening in 25 as well around Antarctica InSync. In particular, we had the Frascati meeting, this ESA workshop, where the white papers were really, the majority of the white papers and their content was put together and finalized afterwards. As well as the formation or the call went out for the international working groups. So we have received over the past couple of months a series of proposals for working groups from the community that also contributed to these white papers following the Frascati meeting. And all of this jointly makes up the science plan for Antarctica InSync. That we will now proceed to fill with life, also with more possible white papers from other working groups that have not yet established. If you could go to the next slide, please. So in detail, what led us to the white papers and to the content of the white papers. We started off by monitoring the different reports that have been written before by the community. This includes the SCAR Horizon Scan. It also includes the Southern Ocean Action Plan for the UN decade. Based on this, there was an initial draft of the themes that were drafted by a smaller group of people. We took then these drafts into the webinars that started in May 25, where the initial ideas of this initially 6 themes, now 7 themes, was presented, especially also by the initial group of people that had put together the ideas for the themes based on these reports. We then continued developing those. There was an open discussion, an open possibility for the community to provide feedback in the second webinar in September 2025. Also for those that were not able to participate in the Frascati meeting to provide feedback, and this was also taken into account when drafting these white papers. In Frascati itself, we then took these initial drafts and also the input from the both webinars to form the content and proceed with the actual documents. Then these white papers were finalized until December, and then they were uploaded to the SCAR website, where they're now available for the community to read and to provide feedback on the white papers, and we will also discuss them today. So this is where we stand today. A couple more words on the working groups. So if you could go on. So we have received, as I said, a larger number of proposals for working groups. And first, those that we have received over the last year, we have already approved, or some of them are in review. So certain working groups are already approved. We have received a couple of more that we will also look at. We will also post them on the website fairly soon, so that the community can see what working groups already exist and who the contact persons are. And then with time, we can also add more working groups. There is a possibility to also update working groups as we proceed on with the InSync initiative. We also invite working groups to submit further more detailed white papers. Today we will discuss the overarching white papers for the scientific themes. These are very broad, so if there's a more detailed need for a white paper from a specific working group, we welcome those, and they can be appended to the set of white papers that we already have. Is there another slide, Steffi? Yeah, so you see a list of those working groups that are already approved here, and the other ones that we are currently reviewing were on the other slide. So with this, I think this was the part where we wanted to briefly share and update you on this information. And then we would now proceed to go into the individual white paper presentations, and I pass on to Diego.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, as Alex mentioned regarding to working groups, I want to provide information that we are trying to upload the information as soon as possible in our webpage. And as well, we're going to inform you when that information is online through our different channels. So we're going to send information through our newsletter and as well using our LinkedIn account. So it's moment to start with the presentations. And as we can see here in the agenda, we have different talks. And we will start first with one is about the policy white paper. And then we will continue with the 7 other different scientific themes. And to finalize with the last presentation about a cross-cutting white paper on Earth observation. With that, I want to invite Petra Hale, who will provide a little overview about the policy white paper.
Yeah, hi, Diego. Can you see the shared screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to talk to you. So before we get to the themes white paper, I just want to give a very brief overview of what a smaller group worked on, especially during the Frascati meeting, but also followed up with stakeholders, consolidating input and requests before, but also following up since. So as you can see, the policy white paper, I just did some screen grabs from the document. It's much shorter and it doesn't follow the structured outline that all the other theme papers were really asked to provide. The purpose was to provide early information to the different institutes, the different national players, down to the individual, but also at a higher level to approach funding agencies or to shape funding calls, to inform the operators, national operators or at lower granularity, and also to get buy-in from the policy stakeholders. So it was very important for us with this policy or so-called impacts white paper to address across different very high-level themes what the purpose and the anticipated outcome in their area of interest would be from an initiative like Antarctica InSync. So we provide an executive summary, and we really also, if there's interest, I can't remember if the white paper is shared on the screen, on the portal. I don't think it is so, but if there's requests, it already has gone out to the different funders and the national heads. But if there's any interest to contribute, to update it, or to a copy of it, please reach out. Sorry, just trying to switch the page. Sorry, guys, there it is. One of the very important comments that we had from especially the funders is, why are we having another initiative like Antarctica InSync coming now? So really made a point that Antje and the other first promoters of this initiative made. And it's calling out the criticality of this near synchronous observations at times where we have very little observation, where we have a data white desert basically, the year-round criticality, and make that against the backdrop of that recent, really rapid cumulative change that we have seen, especially in the Antarctic and the Southern Ocean region. Obviously, we also made points that this research is been supported from those relatively recent initiatives and horizon scans, as the 2014 SCAR horizon scans, and it's also embedded within the Southern Ocean, the SUS initiative and Southern Ocean strategy. Obviously, we need to encourage and work with the themes to achieve those really high level beyond the pure science outcomes. And that speaks that we anticipate and really work hard for the overall InSync initiative to provide evidence, foundational evidence to give rise to policy advice. So we want to establish those direct links via prototyping pathways. It's also very important to point out the implications for practice. And so we really use that Antarctic Southern Ocean example to communicate that and provide also the upskilling for the upcoming 5th IPY International Polar Year, which will follow very soon. We have started to map examples of how we relate the impact areas that certain funders or stakeholders in this context are very interested, and link them to initiatives, outcomes, data streams, and so on from the Antarctica InSync initiatives. And we really encourage, and we really heartened by those currently submitted and also approved working group proposals, because they very much speak to a lot of those areas where InSync will make an impact and is of high relevance to those non-scientific stakeholders. It's also a call for action. We've seen that a lot in the recent year around the global climate and earth system and biodiversity science. And we are obviously very, very keen to connect the Antarctica's InSync initiative with current and upcoming schemes. And so we anchor that quite tightly in a lot of the UN, the Southern Ocean Decade, the Cryosphere Decade for the UN Decade for Cryospheric Action, and so on. And what we are working on at the moment is communication pieces. And so this is a very well-known figure. Sorry, oh no, there it is. It's taken from the SCAR environmental portal. It speaks to the different components, pretty similar to the themes here that we have in Antarctica InSync, and basically try to give pathways to this storytelling, which then can be used to really connect the InSync science outcomes from the various themes and across themes to connect with our stakeholders. So I pause here and hand back to Diego.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Petra, for that. And we know that that's something really important to think about, the policy paper. That's why we wanted to start with that. And now, before we start with this, all the different themes presentations, I want to mention to the speakers that we have a really tight schedule, so please stay on time. You have 5 minutes, and in the second part of the webinar, we're going to have plenty of time for discussion. With that, I want to invite Elisa Carley, who will present the general overview about theme 1.
I hope you can see the screen.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks everyone. So I'm presenting theme 1, Southern Ocean physical and biogeochemical cycles in changing climates on behalf of the coordinating authors and lead authors, of course. Just starting briefly with the motivation and background, but I would refer everyone to the paper for this because I want to focus on different aspects of the paper today. But very briefly, so of course we all know about the key role of the Southern Ocean as a climate regulation. But of course, there are still very large uncertainties on key physical and dynamical processes and also key budgets. For example, heat, fresh water, carbon, and nutrients, they remain poorly constrained. So the core limiting factor is the insufficiency of observations. So we take on this to highlight the main knowledge gaps that we've identified. This is about the air-sea fluxes. Of course, we need direct heat, carbon, and momentum fluxes measurements because the bulk parameterizations are inadequate and often disagree. Knowledge gaps about the deep water upwelling and transformation, especially in winter and in shoulder seasons. The Antarctic bottom water formation and export, also especially in critical seasons such as autumn and winter months. Knowledge gaps about cross-shelves exchange mechanisms. This means transport, the role of eddies, topographic interactions are poorly characterized. Gaps about the freshwater budget with all of the key processes such as precipitation, ice melt variability, sea ice thickness that also are poorly quantified, and gaps about carbon and trace gases which are poorly quantified, and especially in terms of methane and N2O, these observations are almost entirely absent. So we have highlighted also the key recommendations. There's 9 of them. To start with the long-term time series maintenance, of course, we want to maintain the observations that have been there for the past decades. We don't want to lose them. Second, about the air-sea flux measurements, we need air-sea flux of heat, momentum, moisture, CO2, methane, and all the other tracers direct measurements. Third, about the process studies of the marginal ice zone, especially in regions characterized with large scale upwelling to capture critical atmosphere ocean ice interactions. Fourth recommendation about year-round continental shelf observations, because to observe these processes that drive the global ocean circulation and affect global biogeochemical cycles. Fifth recommendation about critical region monitoring. This is especially about some regional choke points that control bottom water export, meridional and vertical transport, etc. The sixth about ocean ice interface observations, and this is especially to fund the development of open source and ice capable technology. Seventh, about the enhanced Earth observation capabilities, because we have to remember that there must be a very strong synchrony between Earth observation in situ and modeling capabilities. So here we want to really stress the need for observational products that are tailored for the Southern Ocean. The eighth recommendation about the process-based model development and evaluation, and this is to reduce future climate projection uncertainties. So we will need to use the expanded observational capabilities in order to improve these our climate projections. And the ninth recommendation about the international resource sharing, because of course this is a global effort, so we need to formalize shared shipyards and support data sharing, and of course also the deployment strategies, platforms, sensors, etc. Of course, this is just to end. These are the working groups that we've received for now, and as Diego and the others were saying, we also encourage other working groups to submit their applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Continue with the presentations. I want to introduce Gunnar Streng, who will present theme 2.
Theme 2, rapid sea ice decline and its causes and consequences. First, some words about whom you can contact as the leadership for this team. So this is actually Steffi Arndt and Rushle Dadek for the physical part and Letizia Tedesco for the BGC part of this theme. I'm Gunnar Spreen, and I'm actually mainly here for the connection to the satellite remote sensing. And I'm talking here now that Steffi hasn't to talk all the time. And we have another anchor person for the modeling, and that is Martin Penolle. And working groups we maybe can talk about during the breakout sessions. Okay, main motivation for this theme might be clear. Here on the left, you see this rapid CS decline, which happens during the last 10 years. And we like to understand that in the theme. So it's about the causes and consequences of that. And that has to be done then circumpolar and in different regions of the Antarctic Ocean. So for the white paper, we identified 4 main topics and put one main research question to it. So the first one is sea ice mass balance and dynamics. And the research question driving this would be what coupled thermodynamic and dynamic processes and feedbacks are responsible for the rapid sea ice decline? And then also how do these processes and feedbacks vary around Antarctica and over time? The second one, for the coupled ocean, sea ice, atmosphere, ice sheet interactions, the related question would be, how do exchanges of mass, heat, and momentum between sea ice and the other component mentioned drive the rapid sea ice decline? The third is then around the ecosystem and biogeochemical responses of this decline. And the research question driving this would be, what are the consequences of the rapid sea ice decline on the ecosystem dynamics and biochemical processes in the Southern Ocean? And last but not least, going to the larger scale, climate implication and feedbacks. How does the rapid sea ice decline impact the global climate system and amplify climate change? And all that, for all that, we need see the urgency of circumpolar year-round observations as Antarctica InSync will provide it. So based on these topics and research question, the theme 2 groups then identified 6 groups of main processes evolving around these, and this is here shown in this graphic also from the paper. These would be processes, sea ice growth and melt, sea ice drift and deformation, snow processes of atmosphere ice energy budgets, then the process in the exchanges to the ocean boundary layer, the ecosystem related processes, biogeochemistry, and then up here the link to the large-scale climate variability. Under all these domains, we have then listed or detailed which are the important processes for these, and also identified then what key variables do we have to observe to understand these processes and the connection between of them. And I cannot go through all these, so these tables are from the white paper. You see here again the overarching 4 topics and questions, the 8 process domains, and then the variables which should be observed during Antarctica InSync, and bold here are the essential climate variables related to those. And how to observe this now? So what is the overarching observing strategy and where do we observe it? Maybe first that, the key regions. We have divided in the paper into pack ice observations in the marginal ice zone, landfast ice and polynya observations. These are obviously tackled by the same observation system sometimes, but we think there are different strategy needed, detailed in the paper. And the observation strategy would then going from the very local observations, but these nevertheless should be circumpolar and throughout all seasons and with regular and repeated visits, and going then to ships, airplanes, helicopters, and then very important also the satellite observations to cover all regions over longer time scales. And all that should be done coordinated with internationally by many groups which have formed within the theme 2. That would be all I have for the moment.
Thank you very much, Gunnar. Really nice presentation. For the third theme, I want to invite Anna Hogg. She will present all the work that Theme 3 have been doing during the last months and the general overview of the white paper.
Forgetting to unmute. Can you see my screen sharing okay?
Yes.
Great, cool. Thank you very much. So I'm here to present the Theme 3 white paper, which has a focus on the Antarctic ice sheet and ice shelves. And we've got a real focus on looking at the processes driving rapid change from observation to prediction. You can see the three co-chairs, which is me along with Gail, Durand and Hendrik Huold, who are both on this call today, along with our co-authors who all made incredibly valuable contributions. So the aim of this presentation is to summarise Theme 3, where we see the key scientific questions and knowledge gaps that we want to look at. We have a proposed observing strategy, which we will set out. And the aim is that we welcome community feedback on any element of this white paper so that we can refine the document and improve it. So the scope of Theme 3 is to focus on the processes driving rapid and heterogeneous change in the Antarctic ice sheet and ice shelves. The paper is organised around key interfaces where coupling is critical, and we see this in the ice ocean, the ice atmosphere, and the ice bed or solid earth parts of the system. So our objective is to identify what must be observed and how to do this within the scope of Antarctica InSync, and to provide guidance to the community for developing coordinated research projects, either nationally or internationally, rather than trying to prescribe an observing system that has to be adhered to. There's lots of different ways to tackle this science. So we structured the paper around 4 key knowledge gaps that we've identified, and you can see these illustrated on the nice diagram that Gail's presented here. So knowledge gap 1 concerns ice dynamics and the structural integrity of the ice sheet and ice shelves, including flow, changes in flow, fracture, calving and grounding line change, so ice dynamic processes. Knowledge gap 2 addresses the ice-ocean interactions, particularly ocean heat transport towards the ice sheet and ice shelves and basal melting. Knowledge gap 3 focuses on atmospheric forcing and surface processes such as snowfall, melt and firn evolution. And knowledge gap 4 concerns basal conditions, grounding zones and solid earth processes. And so a key message is that rapid change emerges from the coupled processes across these gaps, not from any single component in isolation. And so you'll see all of our knowledge gaps really try and span that range. So in terms of key variables and focus and priorities, in order to address these knowledge gaps, we require integrated multi-platform observations across the ice, ocean, atmosphere and bed. In situ measurements remain essential to constrain some of these key processes, but they must be complemented by airborne satellite-based observations to ensure spatial coverage and continuous temporal sampling. Finally, observations must be sustained and coordinated to capture variability and to reduce uncertainty in models and projections. We can't predict how Antarctica will change in the future without models, and so that's an important part. And to translate these knowledge gaps into actionable observing strategies, the paper defines key variables. So note that key variables that are different from essential climate variables, which those in the satellite community might be aware of, and that's hopefully something that we're using consistently across the themes. And so the variables span ice, ocean, atmosphere and bed, and they target key interfaces highlighted earlier. We've prioritised variables that directly constrain processes, not only system state, and that can be observed synchronously across domains. And the intent is that the key variables can guide supersite design, measurement strategies, and links between observations and models. So we hope it's a really helpful tool. We've identified some supersite regions of interest, and the purpose of these, I think, is important to define. So the supersites are proposed as focused locations for coordinated, multi-domain, international observations where we can all get together, even across the Antarctica InSync themes, to understand parts of the system in ever more detail. So their purpose is to resolve key coupled processes at interfaces and at relevant timescales, rather than to provide exhaustive spatial coverage, which of course we would like in addition. But supersites are explicitly intended to complement, not replace, Antarctic scale observations and to be linked through scientific traverses and other spatially distributed observing strategies. Their selection is guided by the scientific relevance to the knowledge gaps, and you'll hopefully see that through a detailed table in the white paper. as well as practical feasibility and existing infrastructure, which we must consider when designing any of these experiments. So based on the identified knowledge gaps and the observing needs, the paper formulates 3 key recommendations. First, we recommend that a coordinated multi-domain set of observations are implemented, centered on the super sites to target key ice ocean atmosphere bed interfaces and to directly resolve coupled processes. Second, these focused process studies should be embedded within a broader observing strategy, combining super sites with scientific traverses, airborne campaigns, sustained satellite observations to ensure Antarctic scale coverage. And third, we stress the need to strengthen links between observations and models so that improved process understanding translates into better parameterizations, reduced uncertainty, and improved predictions. Together, these recommendations aim to support the objectives of Antarctica InSync by aligning process understanding, observing strategies, and prediction. So we are primarily seeking feedback on the refinement and clarity of the white paper rather than sort of widespread changes to the overall structure. Unfortunately, I don't think we've seen any requests for that so far in the feedback we've received. In particular, we're asking the community, are there key processes or variables that should be emphasised more strongly? They might be in there, but they might not be at sufficiently high profile, and so that's a useful recommendation. Are the priorities and examples clear and well balanced across regions and disciplines? Are there important ongoing planned activities that should be better reflected? So community input will directly inform the revised version of the white paper. We appreciate that it was compiled at pace and at a tricky time before Christmas. And so we're really hopeful that this community input will improve the white paper further. So that's all from me.
Thank you really much, Anna. Really nice presentation. To present the really diverse and different ideas of Team 4, I am happy to invite to the floor to Connor Bamford.
Thank you, Diego. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who has already contributed to this theme so far. Your input's been incredibly valuable. And I'd take this opportunity just to reiterate that my co-authors and I recognize that we don't represent a complete skill set covering everything of theme 4, which is quite a large theme. So continued contributions are always welcome. Here's our kind of conceptual overview of theme 4, which really focuses on improving our understanding and protection of Antarctic life across the entire system, from ice-free land areas and glaciers through to sea ice communities, surface waters down to the seafloor, and at different scales from microbes through to top predators. And theme 4 is very much, it's a large theme, and it covers both the marine and the terrestrial region. Antarctica's ecosystems are highly endemic and play a critical role in global processes, for example, carbon sequestration, nutrient cycling, climate regulation. Yet a key theme of this is that biodiversity is still underestimated. Observations are patchy in both space and time, and many processes are especially limited during winter, under ice, and in benthic and microbial systems. We've tried to draft the white paper to respond to these gaps, taking a broad overview approach, promoting coordinated circumpolar and interdisciplinary research. We'd like to try and bring together both biological, physical, chemical, and genomic observations to understand how Antarctica's ecosystem functions and the services that they provide. Our structuring of the white paper was broadly around 3 themes, 3 pillars. The first one is biodiversity, the second is ecosystem functioning, and the third is ecosystem services. Together, we found that these provided a broad evidence base needed to assess the whole system and its resilience to change and detect the change, indeed, and to support effective conservation and management processes. Ultimately, theme 4 is about ensuring that Antarctic life is properly represented in global assessments and that the decision-making bodies have the information that they need to act in this rapidly changing system. Theme 4 very much links with many of the other themes, and we've tried to highlight this in the white paper itself, making links to the other themes where possible. One thing that did come to the floor quite regularly is the need to maintain this into the next stage of InSync. And it will likely be a challenge to take the recommendations from the white paper and maintain these cross-theme links into the future. Just as a little highlight for anyone who may be joining the efforts more recently, our timeline and sort of involvement started with the Frascati group last November. We drafted the white paper, then there was an invited review process, the synthesis, followed by a synthesis of the recommendations, and then it has gone out to SCAR for wider comments. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll be working to bring on board the second stage of feedback, and then there'll be a submission for the final white paper. So just another reiteration that community engagement and feedback on the white paper would be very much welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. Really nice overview. And before we continue, I want to remember to the speaker that we have a really tight schedule, so please stay on time during your presentations. And with that, I am really happy to introduce Sai-Young Che, directly from Noimaya Station in Antarctica, to present the updates of Team 5.
Okay, thank you, Diego. I'm very happy to present for the Team 5. First, I would like to thank all of the co-authors and for their contributions. And also would like to thank the reviewers who already gave very insightful comments, and we are going to work on that afterwards. This is an overview for the Team 5. For the main research topic, focus on human impacts in Antarctic. In this team, we study different forms of pollution, including chemicals, plastic, and underwater noise, and how they affect the marine ecosystems. We also assess the impacts of tourism and address biosecurity and invasive species risk. And other topics include the influence of marine pollution on phytoplankton and climate feedback, as well as the legacy of human expansions in Antarctica. A new topic just posted during the open evaluation, which focus on understanding and managing the krill fisheries. All these topics would be carried out through the InSync program. And we are also happy to welcome new working groups to working topics to join us. And the topic A is focused on chemical and plastic pollution in Antarctic. And at present, systematic monitoring is quite limited, and long-term data are quite scarce. And we still lack on clear understanding of how contaminants move, accumulate, and affect an Antarctic ecosystem. The goal of this topic is to establish coordinated international monitor across Antarctic to identify pollution sources, pathways, and hotspots. And talks for the topic B, increasing the shipping traffic and the fishing activity, and causing growing underwater noise pollution in Antarctic water. However, we still lack of clear baseline of nature Antarctic soundscapes and coordinated pan-Antarctic assessments. The goal of this topic to establish a circumpolar soundscape baseline, compare regions over time, and evaluate the impacts of human-generated noise in Antarctic waters. And topic C is related to tourism. And as you have seen, tourism in Antarctic has increased dramatically in the past 30 years. With a steady rise in visitor numbers at key sites, this growth has raised the concern about the environmental impact and the expansion of tourism into new areas. Yet, monitoring remains inconsistent and fragmented. The aim of the topic is to develop a reliable, cost-effective monitoring framework that can be applied across the Antarctic. And also this work will be cooperated with the National Antarctic Program and the YATO. And the topic C is regarding the security and the invasive species preventions. And this topic is related to antimicrobial resistance and also environmental DNA analysis. As you know, this can monitor the invasive species. And the goal of this topic is to create a coordinated standard surveillance framework that's linked to all this NMR and the VAERS and the eDNA. And this is a new topic, which is focused on the assessment and management of ecosystem effect of the krill fish eye. And this work we also carry out together with the what's called the CAMLA's Weather Scientific Committee and non-governmental initiatives, and to produce to protect the krill population and the wildlife and depend on them. And the topic E is study on the effects of water pollution on Southern Ocean and the phytoplankton and the climate feedbacks. And this with this topic, since we don't know how pollution accumulates in these organisms, how different species respond, and how climate affects nutrient cycle and climate feedback, the goal is to understand this impact on phytoplankton on climate. We'll do this through combined ship, aircraft, and satellite and fixed station observations. The final topic is encounter at the end of the world, tracing Antarctic condition legacies, culture signature, and involving narratives. I have to say this is a very interesting topic. And as you know, my story and the message about humans facing the Southern Ocean and the Antarctic remain under explored, and the historic and modern conditions are rarely compared. Traditional narratives often focus on heroism and conquest. Our goal is to document its legacies, check how stories and messages have evolved, and see how contemporary conditions reinterpret them. And thank you. I will end here.
Thank you really much, Sai-Young, for the nice presentation. Our next speaker is Julia Schmale, and she will present the different ideas and work of Team 6.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Diego. So I'm talking on behalf of the Team 6 team, and Martin Radens is also here in the webinar. So the Theme 6 is aerosol cloud, precipitation interactions and radiative feedbacks. Precipitation is in orange because we've actually changed the title. We had the communication in the theme, and precipitation seems to be necessary there. So the key motivation for this theme is that there is significant variability and uncertainty in climate predictions that are actually rooted in the poor simulation of the cloud cover over the Southern Ocean. And clouds, in addition, have a very marked impact on the surface energy balance and on the surface mass balance through precipitation. And so that led us to define 5 different knowledge gaps. So the first one is quantifying aerosol sources, properties, and processes. The focus is on aerosols because aerosols are necessary to form clouds. Plus, they interact directly with solar radiation, so have a climate impact too. The second knowledge gap is characterizing cloud and precipitation properties. That's for the radiation impact and the mass balance impact. Knowledge gap 3 is understanding the surface energy budget and boundary layer structure. So the boundary layer structure is very important to understand for the cloud formation and also the dispersion of aerosol. Knowledge gap 4 is constraining cloud circulation coupling. So we don't only have small scale formation of clouds, larger weather systems are important. So we need to take a large scale view here as well. And then finally, knowledge gap 5 is including the modeling. So we need to advance the modeling of clouds and aerosols in the Southern Ocean and Antarctic continent region, because we need the models for the climate change predictions. And this is our conceptual model of how we would like to conduct the research. So our key endpoints are in orange: sea ice retreat, surface mass balance, and surface energy balance. And then the modes, how we want to study, they are in purple, so using satellite observations, aircraft, stations, vertical ships, buoys, and then modeling. And then we have a variety of detailed processes that you can read about in the white paper. We have specific observing strategies and essential variables that are supported by modeling. So doing synchronized year-round observations on these different platforms is very important, and this also alludes to the legacy effect. So we'd like to, first of all, continue from already ongoing observations and then also lead them to the next IPY, so really bridge in between. And then we have a multi-level approach to collect variables where there's different priorities. So priority 1 is very achievable. These are baseline observations year-round across all platforms and locations, ideally. Priority 2 is a little less achievable in all of the locations, so that's a little bit more details, fewer sites potentially during intensive observation periods. And priority 3 is really high impact observations at dedicated super sites. And then the modeling activities, they would aim at, first of all, validating the models with the observations, intercompare the different models, and then use case studies for process understanding. And we can also use the models to interpret the observations. And then finally, the recommendations and also the summary of this theme is that it's very important that we have the integrated ensemble of in situ and remote sensing observations that are targeted specifically at improving the numerical representation and constraining model uncertainties of aerosols and clouds specifically. We emphasize the need specifically for vertical observations in the atmosphere that's not so easily achieved. And covering actually all regions of Antarctica is very important because there's different trends in the atmospheric variables across these areas. And overall, theme 6 aims to mitigate the fact that at the present, structured data to constrain aerosol cloud precipitation processes and radiative impacts are virtually non-existent. So looking forward to the discussion later.
Thank you really much, Julia, for the nice talk. And now, for the first time, I'm really happy to introduce Team 7. And today we have as speaker, Matthew Casado.
Hi, so thank you so much. We are very glad to be able to present Theme 7 on viability extremes and tipping in a changing climate. It's been a very large effort over the holidays from a very large list of authors. We had more than 40 authors. Some of them are listed here to try to finalize this white paper, which we just finalized last week. That's why it was a bit late online, but we are really expecting feedback from all the community because there are probably still a couple of gaps into the white paper. Okay. So the goal of having this Theme 7 around climate viability and extremes was to put all the observations collected during Antarctica InSync into a longer-term climate perspective. And this would be focusing on extreme events and rapid climatic changes such as tipping points, which we believe are extremely important for the Antarctic environment. And to do this, we will link the changes at timescale ranging from events like storm, atmospheric rivers, heat waves, to multi-decadal and even longer term observation. And this would be potentially using Climate Archive. And the goal would be to use a wide array of tools from shallow ice cores, sediment cores, isotopes to observations from stations and from traverse. And hopefully to be able to consolidate all the efforts from Antarctica InSync around Antarctic past and future viability. We've been discussing, and we had a lot of overlap with all of the other teams, just because variability and extremes are something that can be found a little bit across disciplines. And so these would be our principal focus, and these are probably led to the fact that we tried to reach out to everybody, but maybe we missed a few people. So if you feel like things could be included in climate viability but not represented here, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And we identify snow, flood, and surface mass balance, and we are aware that there is a strong overlap with theme 3, but we've been discussing with them, and here the goal would be to mostly focus on what's happening really inside the atmosphere and how like variability and especially climate variability and extreme events can affect this. There is a lot of work on the atmospheric and the water cycle, from weather, precipitation, water isotopes to track storm and moisture inland, on the ocean, sea ice, atmosphere coupling, and how again like this will amplify or mitigate extreme, alter the heat moisture exchange, and threaten deep water formation. And finally, on variability and warming detection, combining new observation with ice core and marine records to separate human-driven trends from natural variability and identify early warning signals of irreversible change. We decided to have this figure to represent the white paper because we didn't have so much room, and we felt like this was kind of just a nice example. And it was difficult because the theme was so wide that we couldn't really represent, but we felt like this was exhaustive enough to kind of give a taste of what type of research would be included in the theme 7. Again, like we have a lot of knowledge gaps, and maybe for the interest of time, I might like skip over them so we don't go over time too much. But I invite you all to go check inside the white paper. And as I said before, if you think like there is a key knowledge gap that we missed, like please don't hesitate to contribute into the review from the SCAR. Our key variables, and this I will discuss more in the breakout sessions because we would be very keen to get feedback on them. We have a table where we try to put everything, and we will be very happy to get feedback through the breakout session and also in the SCAR community review. And finally, there is still time to join theme 7. We have a form, but otherwise you can just reach out to us, and us is mostly myself, Luis Saim, Irina Gorodetskaya, and Martin Werner. So far, we have 11 InSync working groups that are planned or already submitted. A short list of them is represented here. There are 6 more to be submitted. And if you think like something is missing and you need help to suggest a new working group, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And that will be everything for me. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you really much, Matthew, for that nice talk. Now, continuing with the talks, we just finished with the presentation of the 7 scientific themes, and now we have another talk regarding a cross-cutting white paper on Earth observation, and for that I invite Martin Waring to present the different ideas.
Thank you, Diego. Yes, so hello everyone. So I'm going to be talking on behalf of the Earth observation cross-cutting group. We have a long list of co-authors, so I just take this opportunity to thank them for their contributions, and also a link at the bottom there for anyone interested in joining the working group and for further interaction. So our white paper was slightly different in structure compared to the science themes. It had sort of 2 main elements. The first was kind of advertising what EO can bring to Antarctica InSync. So highlighting that as Earth observation provides a comprehensive and continuous monitoring of Antarctica and the Southern Ocean, and that these data sets kind of provide essential information for addressing lots of the science priorities, and can kind of add to the in situ and modeling campaigns planned during Antarctica InSync. And even on their own, the EO data sets can help to address the research priorities of Antarctica InSync. But the main bulk of the white paper was focused on what the priorities are from the EO community. And firstly, it's to continue to improve and build on the satellite record. So extending the record, increasing the variables we measure, improving the spatial and temporal resolution, quantifying and reducing uncertainties, increasing the data availability, and obviously looking to build new capabilities in the future. And a lot of this improvement in the Earth observation is achieved through calibration and validation with in situ, and that was just a kind of one of the joint top priority from the Earth observation community, is to coordinate with the fieldwork teams. And not only does this, the in situ and the EO form the core observational baseline, but they both can work hand in hand. So the EO can be used to target key locations for in situ data collection, and can be used to coordinate these super sites. I think many of the science teams are interested in the concept of a super site, and Earth observation can play a key role in then selecting them. In terms of CalVal, there's a whole range of new satellite missions coming online in the next few years. These are the ones highlighted here on the screen, are the European ones. But the calibration and validation from in situ observations is key to maximizing those missions. So there's a key opportunity here to coordinate with the fieldwork teams, and we have a whole list of kind of observations we'd like to get our hands on. But we have some kind of ideal characteristics. For instance, we'd like these observations to be maintained for long periods and through multiple seasons. That provides the best type of data for the CalVal activities. Ideally, that they could coincident with satellite overpasses, and also be able to sample the variability within a satellite footprint. Kind of a practical step for optimizing the data collection is to think about the planned campaigns, and whether sort of low-cost equipment specialists for sort of targeted for the EO community can be taken on fieldwork, planned fieldwork campaigns. And we have a list within the white paper of the kind of observations we'd like to see that could lead to improved satellite observations. Sort of coordination is a running theme throughout the white paper. Coordination of both space agencies and commercial satellite providers. Particularly with the commercial providers, there's an interest in accessing high resolution commercial products, and potentially requesting them for high interest events within Antarctica and the Southern Ocean. The community is very keen to collaborate with the modeling teams to ensure that EO data is used to its maximum extent for both model initialization, assimilation, and validation, but also to help improve the understanding of complex processes. One of the key things coming out of the conversations amongst the EO group was that the EO data sets are sufficiently long and detailed that they can start to address some of the priorities for Antarctica InSync. And one of the annexes to the paper is a kind of list of potential research projects and links to working groups that have that EO focus. And the advantage is that we have a lot of the EO data already. We can start now, potentially, and work through the Antarctica InSync and to build towards IPY. Of course, there's lots of data produced as part of the EO community's work, and one of our priorities also is to increase the accessibility and interoperability of the data sets, particularly between domains, and that includes across the science themes. So yeah, that's a very brief overview of the white paper. We welcome the feedback of the community, and are particularly looking to get feedback across all the different science themes. Thank you.
Thank you really much, Martin, for this nice presentation about one of the cross-cutting themes. And with that, I want to mention that the rest of the cross-cutting themes group of Antarctica InSync are as well invited to submit a paper. Before we jump to the breakout session, I want to mention to the participants that the idea of this webinar is the discussion and receive your feedbacks about the different white papers, and mention that you will be allowed to not only participate in one breakout session, so if you have something to comment regarding more than one white paper, you are available to jump or to change between the different sessions. And with that, I think Alex wants to mention something.
So we will now move into the breakout sessions. We will have half an hour for that. We will not have the joint Q&A discussion because we are running out of time, but you can keep all your questions and answers for the breakout groups, and we will also jump the different breakout groups as coordinators in case you have any more questions on that. For the breakout groups, we will have 8 breakout groups, and you can switch between the different groups if you want, and you can raise your hand, and the co-hosts, they can unmute you if you have any comments or questions. Before we go into the breakouts, we will take just a 5-minute break, and if you come back, we will have then we will get the breakout started. Thank you.
And continue with our agenda. Alex and Steffi will present now the next steps of this follow-up meeting.
So following on from this webinar, there's a couple of important next steps. The first is certainly that you have still time to provide feedback on the white papers until the end of January. So please do so. Please submit your comments and also let your colleagues know to submit their comments in case they are not aware of this. Then we will, the lead authors will revise the papers throughout February, and we will then upload the final version as a publication within SCAR, and each individual white paper will receive a DOI. Then also, of course, you can continue submitting additional white papers for the working groups. The process will remain open for everyone that wants to still contribute a paper. If you want to do so, please just reach out to the coordination team to make sure that we can follow up with you on further white paper publications. Then we will also follow up with regular meetings of the scientific steering board, as we have just mentioned earlier. And also, of course, we encourage everyone to continue meeting within the themes. So the theme leads will organize also meetings within the themes, and also the working groups. We leave it up to the working groups to organize their own meetings. So that's something that we can just encourage everyone to continue doing. And then the next slide, Steffi.
Yes, and just like to continue here, it's of course Antarctica InSync is not done with the step that we are now at that stage really far with our white paper with the science plan, but it's now really just like kind of the kickoff and the ramp up for what is really coming next. And therefore we also just want to highlight here again that for all of us, the next steps, and this goes, of course, also beyond the science, but also into the logistics. It's now really about, in 2026, about the actual implementation and about the coordination of infrastructure. And therefore, we plan to have another webinar, actually, at some point before the summer break, in order to just like get everybody again on the same side and really to start thinking and talking actively about everything what is like planned to come up. In addition, within the summer break, or for some of us like after the summer break, then there is the SCAR Open Science Conference, where we have several Antarctica InSync events at and around the meeting, meaning that we have sessions, we have several side events and workshops. So therefore also they're just like watch out, and we will also compile all of that once this is like settled and send it around. But just like, yeah, keep your eyes open, or just like ask if you are not aware of like, or if you feel like you are missing things. Another thing that is not set in stone yet, but given that we see from our perspective the Frascati meeting in November last year as a really huge success, in particular for the status of the white papers now, we consider to have another in-person meeting now in 2026, again, really focusing on the implementation and in particular for the different themes on the standard operating procedures on the SOPs, where we still need to figure out when and how in particular we want to do that, but just like to have this in mind that really 2026 is about this plan of like implementing what we all now just like developed in terms of our science vision and to really bring them alive. And having this said, it's still really crucial for all of you and for all of us to share what you know about your infrastructure plans of certain of the nations, of your institutes, wherever you are. And infrastructure, it's really meant about like ship stations, airborne campaigns, traverses, and whatever comes to your mind. So we try now to really start also compiling all of these inputs to get a big and good overview. And in order to really, as I said, I can just like repeat myself here again and again, really to now bring the science plan alive. And this all of this input, you can either submit that through Polardex, where you have also now the opportunity to kind of like flag activities to Antarctica InSync, or if you are not sure how to do that in detail, just like drop a message to the coordination office, and Diego and we are happy to just like collect that on our side and then feed that into these systems. And with that, we are at the end of today's webinar. I want to take the opportunity to say again, thank you to everybody who contributed, to say thank you to Isa hosting that meeting here again, and to say thank you in particular also to Ska hosting the white papers and to support us with the whole infrastructure around that. And with that, I think all of us wish you now, a nice evening, a nice day, wherever you are, in which kind of time zone. And with that, we are looking forward to the future collaboration and the future work, and in particular, as I said, the implementation of all what we achieved so far and what we just discussed again today. And with that, have a nice day and evening.